In today's video, we're going to take a look at two incredible food days I had while in Matsuyama. Many of these foods were the absolute best versions I tried throughout my entire trip in Japan, including this, which was the best piece of sushi I've ever eaten in my entire life. Day 1 started off with the hotel breakfast buffet. I specifically picked this hotel because of the incredible buffet reviews. There was a salad bar with many vegetables, potato salad, natto, different dressings, chestnut rice, regular rice, but the most notable section offered two different versions of the Ehime specialty tai-meshi, or sea bream on rice. The first version was tai-meshi, fresh sea bream and sea bream broth on rice with different condiments, including seaweed, pork and ginger, dried fish and shrimp, umeboshi, and different pickles. The second option was Uwajima style tai-meshi, fresh sea bream over rice with a dashi and egg sauce with different condiments. This is a very popular dish from Uwajima, which is also in Ehime Prefecture. The garnishes included sesame seeds, green onions, mitsuba, and wasabi. This buffet put a lot of work into serving local specialties, and they also showed which part of the prefecture they originated in. The buffet also included sake and 5 different kinds of mikan juice. I guess you could make like a Japanese mimosa if you really wanted to. I started filming, but I got too busy pretty quick to be comfortable. I got some sweet and sour chicken, boiled pork belly, simmered taro and konnyaku, grilled salmon, jacoten, and some veggies, as well as some salad, and also made myself a sashimi on rice bowl. Sea bream is the specialty here, but they also had yellowtail and minced tuna. And last was some miso soup with tofu, fried tofu, radish, and wakame, as well as 2 different kinds of mikan juice. This was a very impressive breakfast buffet with a nice selection of local specialties. There was also even a ramen station. The miso soup was very light on the miso. Maybe I didn't stir it enough when I took it. All the ingredients were good, but it really didn't taste like miso soup. It was only okay. They used a really white miso, but I think they just used less than I prefer. The mikan juice was extremely sweet and had a very pronounced citrus flavor. It's too sweet for me, but most people would probably enjoy this. The flavor and sweetness were so strong, it tasted like juice concentrate to me. The yellowtail was slightly firm and rich. It has a distinct smoothness when you eat it that I really enjoy. The minced tuna was softer and even more rich. The tai-meshi sauce tasted like slightly sweet dashi soy sauce, a flavor very common in Japan. I think I was supposed to mix the egg with the sauce on the side, but either way, since you get to choose all your favorite ingredients, this is obviously going to be delicious. 9.2 out of 10. The boiled pork belly was extremely tender and fatty with a nice clean pork flavor. The quality of food on this buffet was excellent. Everything was prepared extremely well and was constantly replenished. This was an outstanding breakfast and a fantastic way to start off my first day of eating. Just kidding, I had someone comment that I should try more desserts in Japan, so I decided this would be the time. There was a pancake station, matcha pudding and jello, as well as mikan sherbet. I made a pancake with matcha whipped cream, mikan sherbet, red bean paste, and some puffed rice, as well as taking a matcha pudding, mixed grape jellies, and an actual mikan. And 2 more mikan juices, as well as a grape one. The mikan sherbet was very mikan-y. Strong citrus flavor, very sweet, and a little bit tangy. Most people would definitely enjoy this, but my honest opinion was too sweet and too cold. The red bean paste was very dense and sweet, while the matcha whipped cream was light. A nice combination of flavors and textures. I tried to identify differences in the mikan juices, but to be honest, they were all so sweet that it overpowered any subtle differences for my palate. If I tried this as a child, it would have been the best thing ever, but not so much as an adult. Even after drinking the incredibly sweet mikan juices, this was the sweetest and most flavorful mandarin I've ever had. The matcha pudding was definitely my favorite dessert item. Very creamy, mildly sweet and bitter, and a delicious matcha flavor. As I said, the main reason I chose this hotel was for the highly rated breakfast buffet. So I had high expectations coming in, and this exceeded all of them. It was an amazing buffet and a great way to start my day of eating. I'll give this buffet a 9.6 out of 10 overall. Since I ate a fair amount for breakfast, I decided to go for a light lunch. I found a highly rated soba restaurant, Tutchi Soba Senri. I ordered a soba meal set with tempura oysters. The broth was surprisingly dark, something I'd never seen before. The oyster tempura surprisingly came with 8 large pieces and vegetables as well. To my surprise, the broth wasn't nearly as salty as it looked. The main flavor was still dashi, but I think they used dark soy sauce for color, which added a rich and slightly sweet flavor. This was my first time trying tempura oysters. The outside batter was extremely crispy and light, while the oyster inside was plump and creamy. I've had breaded and fried oysters before, but the outside coating is much heavier and covers up the mild oyster flavor. These were much better in my opinion. These actually felt really light and were incredibly easy to eat. Although I still prefer them raw, these were the best cooked oysters I've ever tried. Next up were the soba noodles, which were the firmest and chewiest I've ever had. That's how I prefer them, so these were also the best soba noodles I've ever had. The noodles had a decently strong buckwheat flavor, which became more apparent with every chew of the firm noodles. Usually soba feels pretty light and easy to eat, but this one felt more substantial and satisfying. It was also a pretty huge portion, so much for my light lunch. The other pieces of tempura were also excellent. This was a peanut, and it was unexpectedly delicious. Although this was my first time trying tempura oysters, I don't really see how these could be better. There are many styles of tempura batter, and this kind was my favorite. Extremely light and crunchy. 10 out of 10 for the tempura oysters. The bell pepper tempura was sweet and savory. Every piece was delicious because the batter was so light and crispy. Everything was also served at maximum temperature, which I appreciated. Near the end of the meal, the server brought over a cup and a pot. I was pretty sure it was water from boiling the noodles. I've seen this before in videos. And to be honest, this was just straight up not good. I really don't know why you would drink this. Just really starchy water that kind of tastes like buckwheat. But everything else was absolutely delicious. This is a must-try restaurant. Both the soba and tempura were as good as I've had anywhere. 10 out of 10. For dinner, I felt like some sushi, and decided to try out this standing sushi restaurant. I chose the Kinboshi nigiri set, which included 8 pieces of premium sushi, a mini rice bowl, maruzushi, and red miso soup for 3,300 yen. The otoshi was some sautéed spinach with bonito. The first piece arrived shortly, and the first thing I noticed was the rice was absolutely perfect. It had the perfect balance of salty, sweet, and sour, as well as the perfect chewiness and slightly warm temperature. The sauce was a very light, slightly sweet soy sauce. Unfortunately, I don't remember what fish this was, but it had a very soft and creamy mouthfeel. The kamasu had a tender flesh and mild flavor. It was also torched, so it had a smoky flavor which went well with the sauce. The ikura gunkin was briny and sweet with a very fragrant piece of nori. These are always fantastic. Red miso has a very rich umami flavor, less balanced than the other misos in my opinion, but still pretty good. I find the richness and saltiness overpowering compared to other misos. The next course was a tiny tai-meshi, seabream on rice with a light dashi sauce, garnished with green onions, wasabi, and toasted sesame seeds. This was incredibly high quality Thai. So soft, and it had surprising richness, a quality not usually found in Thai. The one I had at breakfast was very good, but this was excellent. Fewer ingredients, but much higher quality. The flavors were relatively mild, but everything was in a perfect balance. Perfectly chewy texture rice with soft Thai and a mild sweet and salty sauce. The onions, sesame, and wasabi added fragrance and kept the flavors from becoming repetitive. 9.9 out of 10. I could eat this every day, no problem. Next, I was given some komochi kombu, or herring roe on kelp. It was extremely crunchy with mild sweet, soy, dashi, and fish flavors. The eggs are much crunchier but have much less flavor when compared to other fish eggs. The eggs almost completely taste like water. The mild taste is delicious, but the most enjoyable part about komochi kombu is the very unique soft but very crunchy texture. The closest texture I can think of are tobiko, but these are much crunchier and more satisfying to eat. These also cost a small fortune in Toronto and are only eaten on New Year's in my family, so I was happy to receive some. 2 different cuts of tuna were next. The first was lean, and it was extremely soft and easy to eat. The same light soy sauce was brushed on. The second was chutoro. This is generally my favorite cut of tuna. And this was definitely one of the best pieces of chutoro I've ever had. It completely dissolved in my mouth when I chewed, and the rich fat liquefied and coated the perfect rice. 10 out of 10. There were 2 more lean whitefish that were delicious, but I can't figure out the names even when I play the video back. Next was anago, or freshwater eel, which was very tender with a moderately rich taste. The sauce on this one was thicker and had a stronger sweet soy flavor. And the last piece was an uni gunkin with beautiful looking sea urchin. The uni was completely sweet and creamy, the seaweed was fragrant, and the rice was perfect. This whole meal cost 3,300 yen, and from start to finish was one of the highest quality meals I had in my entire time in Japan. On top of the incredible quality food, the chef and staff were all extremely helpful and friendly. In fact, even the other guests were incredibly friendly. They were celebrating a birthday and sent me some wine and 2 slices of cake for dessert. The sushi was so good, I had to try their special kinboshi maki, which came with toro, uni, ikura, komochi kombu, and a leaf of shiso in a hand roll. This was the single best piece of sushi I had in my entire trip to Japan. It may seem like a lot going on, but each ingredient offered something that worked cohesively with the other ingredients. The ikura was salty and briny, the toro was extremely rich, the uni offered sweetness, and the komochi kombu was fresh and offered its extremely unique crunchy texture. On top of all that, shiso is my favorite herb and gave its distinct flavor. The same perfect sushi rice was used for the hand roll, which was all inside an incredibly fragrant piece of nori. I know I've rated sushi as 10 out of 10 before, but this is a new standard of 10 out of 10. I stayed and had a few more drinks with the other customers, and also got to try their best buri, which is the largest size of yellowtail and contains the highest fat content. You can even see intramuscular marbling in this one. Buri is firmer than tuna, but has about the same level of richness. In my opinion, the texture is much more pleasant because the richness slowly comes out as you chew. This was the best yellowtail I had in Japan. 10 out of 10. And then after a few more drinks, I was told we had to finish the night off with some soba. And to be honest, my judgment was probably a little bit impaired at this point, but this was incredible soba. Smooth but chewy noodles in a very flavorful dashi broth garnished with lots of green onions. Overall, this was some incredible food, especially the kinboshi sushi, which really was the best piece of sushi I had in all my time in Japan. This was my first time trying a standing sushi restaurant, and it was a fantastic experience, especially since the staff were so friendly. I'm going to say this is a must-try restaurant simply because you need to try their special roll. And that was the end of the first amazing food day.